The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has cautioned that in an outbreak, schools may need to limit the size of classrooms or even close schools altogether.
At first we thought okay, we're just gonna make these packets, it's probably gonna last us a couple weeks, you know.
Spring break just got extended again for public schools.
2020 is the first year in which the whole world saw the use of technology at scale used in teaching and learning.
With coronavirus cases still high across the country, students, teachers, and parents have been forced to adapt to distance learning.
We went from a non-permissive, low-risk environment to a highly disruptive event.
Just the fact that we're using digital learning more, I think, will open people's eyes. How do you use digital tools going forward to do both in-person and online instruction?
We've learned a lot since COVID hit us. We didn't plan for it, we didn't expect it, but we cannot go back. We have to go forward. And we want to take that learning that we're talking about and apply that in a way that we can move forward and be better. Technology is very important to be able to figure out how we use it as a tool for integrating good learning. And to be able to also assess what is good learning, what is learning. And I think doing that in partnership with organizations and people that we never thought was also possible in a pre-COVID time, those alliances now have new meaning. In this challenging time comes fabulous opportunities, I believe. And with these opportunities is a chance to be innovative, to be adaptive, and hopefully, as we play with some of these new innovations, that we can see the change that we want to see in ourselves and in our community and in our education institution.
None of us expected to have to abandon the classroom on short notice in March or April or whenever we made that decision. And we had only weeks to pivot fully online. Remarkable success. But we did what was mostly easy and possible to do with almost no time or preparation. But we also saw the limitations of that approach when we didn't really think through how much technology can do for us to transform and improve teaching and learning.
Over the last 30 years, the use of technology in education and training has been pervasive to the point of now of becoming totally ubiquitous. I'd say the institution that has driven a lot of that work really has been the military. Virtual technologies and immersive technologies were used to reduce risk and improve the ability of people to train without exposing them unnecessarily. So that's been going on for as long as I can remember.
Technology in education is actually what got me to Hawaii in the first place. And I worked with a very early pre-internet PC technology. It was over a decade ago, and I chaired the state's broadband task force. We tried to convey the importance of broadband back then, 10, 11, 12 years ago, and people thought we were dreaming. And everything we talked about then, people are doing from their homes today and realizing that they need enough capacity for everybody to be engaged online at once, bi-directionally.
This whole COVID thing has really highlighted the discrepancy between those who have had the opportunity to engage with tech and those who have not had that opportunity to engage with tech.
You can name pretty much any industry, from retail to agriculture to medical to business, and there is an aspect of technology in everything we do, everything we make, everything we consume. It's not just the use of technology in teaching and learning, it is the application of technology and the purpose of education so that young people are prepared to enter into these fields. So the question and the challenge that we face today is, how do we break down the black box that is public education today?
Math, English, social studies, science. And when you think about what students really need to learn, it doesn't fit into those boxes.
How do we shift the culture of thinking about schools the same way we think about post offices? We drop off a letter at a post office, and then something happens, and it gets to the other side. We drop our kid off at school and something happens. And then after a couple of years, the kids know a lot and they're smart and they're ready for the world. That model was designed in the first decade of the 1900s when we were helping and supporting young people to move into a very specific industrial and manufacturing world. And that's just not the world we're preparing for them right now.
So if we could blow up the physical classroom, the bell schedule, the disciplinary approach to trying to learn things, we really have some amazing opportunities. When I would work with teachers, this is back in the 70s and 80s, and they would say, am I going to be replaced by a computer? And my answer to that is, any teacher who can be replaced by a computer should be. There are so many things that teachers can do, humans can do, that computers can't, that's what we need teachers to be able to focus on, freed from the need to give the lecture about geology, science. The teachers can really facilitate the learning with the content coming in through other means.
Young people live already in a digital world. So if we want to engage with students more effectively, using the tools and meeting them in the virtual worlds and the social worlds they live is probably one of the top ways in which we will turn the corner on increasing engagement.
This whole COVID thing has really highlighted the discrepancy between those who have had the opportunity to engage with tech and those who have not had that opportunity to engage with tech. Doesn't necessarily fall along the lines of socioeconomic class. Most of the time it does, though.
There's two problems. One is not everybody has physical access in their homes to high quality broadband. The second issue is what people can afford. So we need to figure out how will we make affordable, high-speed broadband available to every household in the state.
I mean, here at Puohala, we had the range of teachers. We had teachers who were really comfortable all the way down to those who were like, yeah, you just do it. I don't know what to do.
I think some of that we're going to find is generational. And although we are finding high numbers of older teachers that are engaging, this is where the concept of digital native really comes to play. And our young people in K-12 are real digital natives, where a technology like Burst not only helps educators manage digital content, but it closes the distance and builds a bridge between what happens in the classroom and what can go on television.
I created a website where it allowed my students quickly to find their homework under student and then to submit their homework under the Burst bubble. Assignments were broken up down by subject. And then we have Auntie Lilinoy, who is a kupuna who usually works with our students for hula, a kumu hula. Having her come to school is impossible. But because she was tech savvy, she was able to make videos and upload it to Burst quickly from her phone. And this was her way of giving back, continuing that relationship between us and her. And we then send it out to the students as assignments, and it allows them to practice. So here, this grandma joined her to do the ha'avina. So here you can see it, them working together. And you can see grandma learning the Ōlelo Hawaii. It's what they've grown up with, and so it's second nature to a lot of them. Students, when they will have to make a video of themselves or get their camera out to film or record themselves reading or putting oli or a hula on or explain some kind of math work. I think they saw it as kind of like their own YouTube channel. So they would practice and they would rehearse, and parents would tell me, I had my child rehearsing that song almost 15, 20 times just because they want to look good on the camera. They want to look good on their channel that they felt they had.
What we're finding is young people who tell as digital storytellers are willing to go way farther to tell their story digitally than they are to write an answer on a test.
In a normal classroom, I could tell my students, Kate, go home. I want you to practice reading this, or I want you to practice rehearsing this, learn these words. Some might, those good students are going to do that. But to have majority of my students going home and practicing and being all excited about it and then turning in this work, that was, to me, that's thriving, that's awesome. But it was infectious to their families. So younger siblings were seeing them practicing, they were seeing them reading, recording themselves, and they wanted in as well. They're like, can we be on your channel? I have younger grades, first grade, kindergarten, second grade, reading with their older siblings. Some of them were struggling readers, but because they saw their siblings, they're like, okay, come. And you can see them reading together. And I'm just thinking, look at this. I mean, it was just one of those things that as a parent, not only as an educator, just like, yay, that's a win, you know?
But now the next step that we have to take is even more exciting. We've seen the possibilities that we can serve students anywhere in the state. We can find ways to keep those wheels turning in our students' brains anywhere in the world. That's an incredible opportunity before us.
I think the biggest thing I've learned is don't be afraid, because our teachers who were not accustomed to technology, now they're helping others. And I hear them teaching the other teachers or teaching the other students or the other family members how to work Zoom, how to work this. And I'm just thinking, wow, we've come so far, you know, in such a short amount of time.
So when we talk about assessment, it's not only about paper pencil testing. It is much more than that. How do we assess the possibilities of being able to push that rigor bar even higher for kids to want and aspire to achieve?
So let's talk about the bigger picture of assessment. What I find exciting in a bigger picture is what's happening nationally that Hawaii has been a part of. Instead of looking at assessing the learning, right, the content only, we're starting to talk about assessment for learning. And I think that really resonates for us, especially those on islands that are connected to our lands, that are having a relationship with our aina, the larger ecosystem.
Our school is really focused around our projects that we do. And so yes, we do the reading, writing, and math, and those are all very important, science and social studies. The essence of our school is really taking all of that and applying it. You know, building a garden, a mala, growing these plants, actually harvesting and preparing.
There's a rich abundance of wisdom and intellect and science and literacy that comes from Hawaii. Pre-COVID, that was great because we would just get outside and we would listen and learn from aina. That was our kumu, that was our teacher, and we could really understand why this learning is important, why this knowledge is important, why these skills are important to gain in the context of our community. Now, with COVID, as we've moved to virtual learning, we wondered, oh no, now what? Where is aina in a computer screen?
There was a lot that I wanted to do that I couldn't do actually, because everything had to be done virtually. So students had to really take the reins, you know. Here, now the ball's in your court and you figure out, you know, you have to tell me if something's not working.
Our students had to be extra resilient because very easily they could have just said, you know what, I'm at home. I'm not doing this anymore and I don't care, so I'm not gonna do it.
8 months ago, I was a skeptic to whether you could really bring aina into a Zoom environment or into a virtual environment. Having been a part of many, many learning sessions, learning journeys, where we have taken everything that we've grounded our work in into a virtual setting and felt the power of that still, even in what we would think would be a disconnected environment, it's not true.
And I think one of the best examples of that I've seen at Malama Honua Public Charter School, where they demonstrate their learning and they have to defend their learning from the 5th grade all the way up until they graduate, and to take ownership of their learning.
It's a really nerve-wracking thing to have to put all of yourself out there to a panel and take questions like you would in any defense that you would in college or in high school. Why did you select this artifact? Tell me more about why this expresses your confident cultural identity. I mean, questions that I know as a 5th grader I didn't have to grapple with, And in this case, they had to do it in a presentation. They had to learn how to record. They had to learn how to use the Google Slides while they're recording. Then they had to learn how to edit. Really, it was their parents learning alongside with them, because there's no way that a 5th grader can do it by themselves. That, I think, was both the silver lining and the greatest struggle. We always want to engage our families. Every single one of our families stepped up. They were so much more a part of their students' learning and their journey that definitely was a silver lining.
Assessment is taking us back to Pilina, to relationships with each other, as student to teacher, as environmental relations. And I think this concept of communities of care that's happening nationally is always been here. We call it Ohana, right? We call it Kaiulu. We have names already. So the teacher isn't there in isolation, right? The principal, the superintendent, the student, the mother, the father, we're there surrounding ourselves in this community of care. COVID and distance learning reminds us of that, because if we didn't have those relationships before, it started showing up, right? It was a lot harder to build off of that. And so now that opportunity is to really ground in to that practice of building communities of care once again.
That public education since the 1970s was designed to be resistant to political change. We wanted to create a safe place where young people could learn things even if they were not in political favor. On the other hand, the downside of that, teaching and learning in public education have become the predominant space for experts. And what we struggle with now, because we've learned something about the whole child and the whole community, is that learning really doesn't only take place in the classroom and in the relationship between the educators and the kids. That learning is a whole child, whole family, whole community exercise.
So when we talk about alliances, in my mind, it's alliances from a mindset that the community is the classroom, and that the relationships that we formed within one's own community lend to the educational experience.
It goes back to that cliche, it takes a village to raise a child. Everybody pretty much statewide who work in a school knows this saying is very much true. It does take a village to raise a child.
If COVID-19 did not happen and impact our community and schools as it had, we may not have connected with different community organizations to partner to support our families, because the mission of the schools really is education. We're not set up to take care of financial food needs. And so for some of our schools, they really stepped up and partnered with community organizations to help our families.
We had community partners that joined in and said, you know what, we're in this with you too. And they came to both the trainings as well as sat in on the multiple defenses that usually took a day or two, spread out over like 3 or 4 weeks, just because it just took that much longer. The learning curve was that much more.
Community partners want to just hook up with us to just support, the students at Blanche Pope. We have one on-campus partner that helps support our Grab and Go meal program. One with Hawaii Energy. They are supporting us in obtaining more tech devices, knowing that we are a Title I school. Waimanalo Board Chairperson Kimio Nakane, they've been helping distribute plants at our school to help families develop a sustainable lifestyle.
Innovative experiences, utilizing the community as a classroom with a focus on sustainability, with a focus on preserving what makes Hawaii unique as a cultural place. We have some of the best agricultural research facilities on this side of the island in the state, under the University of Hawaii with CTAR. We have one of the greatest institutes of marine biology at Coconut Island. We have a wetland of international importance in Kauai Nui Marsh. We have the Loko I'a that's on the verge of vanishing. These are all places and sites that have become part of these alliances. and are contributing in some unbelievable ways to opportunities for kids to be inspired.
It just seemed to really reach out to our community and to all of our community partners to come together, because each of us can bring in different aspects and different skills and talents and knowledge bases.
There's a big gap in terms of the number of students that we need coming out of the College of Engineering to fill those kinds of industry-related jobs at home here in Hawaii, and they pay well. Is it possible to teach a pre-kindergartner engineering principles? Yes. Teach them how to build a kite. So imagine now as they adapt and learn every successive year until they become a senior, what they're going to look like in terms of understanding engineering design principles. And not only that, but actually being able to apply it in creative ways to solve problems within their school environment, within their community, and now have the confidence to be able to work in industry through a higher education experience.
I mean, teachers don't teach for the money. We all know that. They teach because they have a passion for helping students and transforming students' lives. And when they see how technology can help them do that, that's when we'll make a difference.
Well, I quoted Bruce Lee to my staff at the beginning of the school year. I told him to be like water, my friends. You know, you gotta be flexible. Bruce Lee said water flows and it crashes, right? And I think for me, it's like, don't be afraid to fail. And we're gonna fail. Like I told my teachers, like, I'm gonna fail you at many points during this process. But what I want you to know is that my intention is the best, right? If we keep students at the forefront of every action, right? As our why, letting them know that, yeah, this is difficult. And when things are difficult, you know, we keep working. I don't think the teachers get enough credit based on, you know, what people sometimes see in social media, but I just wanted to reassure people, everyone's been working really hard. We love our kids. We miss our kids most of all. We can't wait to see them.
I'm just really proud of our students and our teachers and our families for persevering through some really difficult and challenging school, while still trying to persevere through just life through the pandemic. Even now, as I think back on it, I really don't know how we did it all.
So the greatest thing I think I learned, seeing everyone pull together, seeing the kumu work together, seeing the kumu being on the same page with the best interests of our children, always first. Working together, enjoying each other, and especially in this time of COVID where everybody is, you know, stay away, that was a great outcome.
You know, I think that's one of the best silver linings of it all, is that we're learning skills that we're forced to learn them because of this, yeah? And, you know, in our school mission and vision statements, we talk about being 21st century learners, where we might not have spent as much time in the past making sure kids know how to use the tools properly and to use the tools for good purpose, and not just for entertainment or just for their social media contacts and friends and all that, but to make a difference in the world, right?
So as we move forward, we want to be able to bring with us the learning in the use of technology, in how we assess learning, and in how we create new relationships and opportunities to create and inspire our kids and our families to be the best learners possible.